I thought I was building my dream, a company that could change lives, a startup that would finally prove I could make it on my own. 5 years of sleepless nights, empty pizza boxes, and countless lines of code, all leading up to a launch that felt electric. We were small, scrappy, unstoppable, or so I thought. Then, one ordinary Tuesday night, everything shifted. I was alone in the office debugging a payment system when I noticed transfers I didn't recognize, thousands of dollars vanishing into ghost accounts that didn't exist. I texted my co-founder, no reply. The next morning, I walked into a board meeting that wasn't really a meeting. I was handed a folder filled with emails I never wrote, signatures I didn't sign, and a board decision that erased me almost entirely from the company I built. I stared at it in disbelief. Betrayal didn't even begin to cover it. The guy I trusted like a brother had vanished behind a mask of charm and authority, and left me with nothing. At that moment, everything I knew about loyalty, ambition, and trust shattered. I had a choice: accept that my life and work had been stolen, or start piecing together the puzzle of just how far someone could go to erase me completely. And that's when the real nightmare and the truth began. My name is Jack. 5 years ago, I was just a 32-year-old guy in a tiny apartment, living off instant noodles and Red Bull, trying to build something that actually mattered. Nextfly started as a late-night idea. A clean, no BS SaaS dashboard that lets small businesses, coffee shops, boutiques, local contractors track inventory, send invoices, and keep customers happy without needing a $10,000 enterprise tool or a computer science degree. I coded the first version myself in maybe 3 months of all-nighters. It wasn't pretty at first, but it worked. People started paying. That's when I really teamed up with Wick. We knew each other from grad school. He was the guy who could walk into any room and leave with everyone's business card. Charismatic, quick with a joke, always talking about scaling and exit strategy. I was the quiet one who actually shipped features. He said the magic words over beers one night. You build the thing, I'll sell the thing. We'll be unstoppable. We shook on it. We bootstrapped like maniacs. I maxed out every credit card I had. I skipped family Christmases, birthdays, everything. Wick worked the phones, charmed angel investors, got us our first real check. Launch day felt electric. Customers signed up. Reviews came in. This saved my shop hours every week. Revenue started climbing, slow at first, then faster, doubled every few months. By year 4, we had 15 people on payroll. A real office downtown, exposed brick walls, standing desks, free LaCroix in the fridge. The whole startup vibe. We even had ping pong tournaments on Fridays. Serious acquisition offers were landing in the inbox. We were that close to the big win. I thought we were brothers. Then Wick started changing. He'd disappear for these long investor lunches and come back different, snappier, more dismissive. Your UI feels too basic now, Jack. We're going enterprise. We need polish. He brought in this guy Lucas as a strategic advisor. Lucas was older, colder, expensive suit, expensive watch, always looking at me like I was the help. He'd sit in meetings and talk right over me. I told myself it was normal. Growing pains. We were moving up. I ignored the little things. Until I couldn't anymore. It was a Tuesday night. I was alone in the office debugging a payment integration bug. Lights low, just the glow of my monitors. Around 2 a.m., I noticed something off in the back-end logs. Random transfers. $58,000 to something called Apex Advisors. Another $41,000 a week later to the same place. Number contract attached. Number vendor approval email chain. Nothing. I pulled up our accounting dashboard. The entries looked clean on the surface, but the vendor details were ghosts. No website, no phone number, just a P.O. box in Delaware. I texted Wick right then. Yo, what's Apex Advisors? Seeing big transfers going there. 3 dots. Then nothing. He never replied. The next morning I walked into the office like normal, coffee in hand, ready to push a fix. Instead, I got called into the glass conference room. Wick was already there. So was Lucas. And two people I barely knew, silent investors Wick had quietly added to the board without telling me. They didn't waste time. Wick slid a thick folder across the table. Emergency board meeting, Jack. We've reviewed the situation. I opened it. Pages of evidence. Emails I never wrote. Board minutes I never attended. Signatures that looked exactly like mine, but I hadn't signed a damn thing. They claimed I'd mismanaged funds, acted erratically, put the company at risk. My equity, 58% when we started, had been diluted down to almost nothing through a series of approved share issuances I'd supposedly signed off on. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands started shaking so bad the papers rattled against the table. The room smelled like fresh coffee and printer ink. And betrayal. Mia, our ops lead, one of the very first hires, was sitting in the corner, eyes wide, mouth half open. She looked at me, then looked away fast. Wick leaned back in his chair, that same half smirk he used to flash when we closed a deal. "We tried to work with you, man," he said, voice calm, almost pitying. "But you lost the vision. The board voted, you're out, effective immediately." My pulse was roaring in my ears. The edges of my vision went fuzzy. I looked around the table. No one would meet my eyes. I closed the folder, stood up slowly, grabbed my laptop, my notebook, the charger tangled on the floor. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just walked past the ping pong table, past the kitchen with the free snacks, past the team members who suddenly found their screens fascinating. The glass door clicked shut behind me. That sound still echoes in my head sometimes, like a lock turning on everything I'd built. I got in the elevator, alone. And for the first time in years, I had no idea what came next. I got home that afternoon, and the door felt heavier than usual. I dropped my laptop bag by the couch, didn't even turn on the lights, just sat on the floor with my back against the wall, staring at the blank TV screen like it might give me answers. The apartment was quiet in a way that hurt. No Slack notifications, no team memes popping up, no great push today from Wick. Just silence and the low hum of the fridge I could barely afford to keep running. I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app. Personal savings, $2,847. That was it. Everything else, years of grinding, side gigs, birthday money from my mom I never spent, had gone straight into Nextlify. Servers, ads, salaries, office rent. I'd personally guaranteed 2 of the small business loans when the banks wouldn't touch us without collateral. If Nexify went under now, or if they sold it and somehow left me holding the bag, those loans would come after my name, my credit, my future. I'd be starting from zero at 37, maybe worse than zero. I kept replaying the boardroom in my head on loop. Wick's voice, calm, almost gentle. "We tried to help you, man." The way he said it, like I was the problem. Like I'd failed him. The guy who used to crash on my couch when we were broke, eating pizza at 4 a.m. while I debugged crashes. The guy who texted me, "We did it," at 3:17 a.m. the night our first paying customer signed up. The guy I called my brother. How does someone go from that to forging my signature and looking me in the eye while he erases me? I felt sick. Not just angry, physically sick. My stomach twisted like someone had wrung it out. My chest ached, sharp and heavy, the way it does when you can't catch a full breath. I pressed my palm against my sternum like I could push the pain back down. I thought about calling my sister or my mom, telling them what happened. But what would I even say? "Hey, remember that startup I gave up everything for? Yeah, my best friend just stole it and left me with nothing." I couldn't get the words out. Not yet. Instead, I opened LinkedIn out of habit, scrolled through my feed, saw people posting about their Series A and 10x growth, and new headshots in fancy offices. Then I searched my own name. Nothing yet. But I knew it was coming. The whisper campaign, the difficult founder stories, the subtle blacklisting that happens in tech when someone wants you gone quietly. I closed the app. tossed the phone across the carpet. That night I didn't sleep. I just lay on the couch staring at the ceiling cracks, replaying every moment I could have seen it coming. Every time Wick took credit in investor meetings. Every joke about how my code was cute, but not scalable. Every late-night call where he sounded off, distracted, like he was already somewhere else. Self-doubt hit hardest around 4 a.m. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was holding them back. Maybe I wasn't cut out for the big leagues. Maybe I should have let go earlier. The tears came then, quiet, hot, angry ones. I wiped them away fast like they were evidence of weakness. But somewhere under all that hurt and doubt, a small stubborn part of me refused to break completely. Why the forgeries? If I was really that bad, why not just negotiate a clean exit? Offer me a buyout? Why fake documents and dilute me to nothing? Why make sure I walked away with debt instead of even a small piece? That question kept circling. It didn't feel like sloppy greed. It felt calculated, like there was something bigger they were hiding. By morning, the pain hadn't gone away, but it had sharpened, turned from a dull ache into something focused. I still hurt like hell, but for the first time since walking out that glass door, I started wondering if maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end of my story. Maybe it was the part where I finally saw who Wick really was, and what he was really capable of. The next few days blurred together. I barely left the apartment, didn't shower, ate whatever was left in the fridge, half a pizza, some yogurt past its date. My phone kept buzzing with texts from old friends asking, "How's the startup going?" Or, "Heard you're taking a break?" I didn't reply. Couldn't face explaining. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table, the same cheap IKEA one I'd used for coding marathons, with my laptop open and the curtains drawn. The screen glow was the only light in the room. I still had partial access. They'd locked me out of most things fast. Email, Slack, the main production servers, but they forgot one thing. My old dev admin keys still worked on the backup repositories and some legacy audit logs. Wick always hated dealing with tech debt, so he never bothered revoking permissions he didn't understand. That oversight became my lifeline. I started pulling everything I could. Old commit histories, deleted branches, email archives from the company Google Workspace before they changed the passwords. At first, it was just noise, merge conflicts, bug tickets, release notes. Then patterns started showing up, recurring payments to those ghost vendors, Apex Advisors, Horizon Consulting, all Delaware-registered shells with no digital footprint, transfers timed right after big customer invoices cleared, always just under reporting thresholds. I cross-checked against our Stripe and bank feeds. The money was real. It was leaving. But it wasn't coming back in any form I could trace as legitimate expense. I opened a blank Notion page and started dumping timestamps, amounts, account numbers. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, cold. Around hour 40 of no real sleep, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Jack, it's Mia. Using a burner app. Can't talk on company lines. Call me when you're alone." I waited 10 minutes, walked to the stairwell of my building, echoey, concrete, no cameras, and dialed. She picked up on the first ring, voice low, rushed. "Jack, I'm so sorry. I wanted to say something in the meeting, but they had eyes everywhere. Lucas was watching like a hawk." I leaned against the cold wall. "What do you know, Mia?" She exhaled hard. "I overheard them a couple weeks ago. Wick and Lucas in the small conference room after hours. Door wasn't fully closed. Wick said, 'Once the sale closes, we clean house for good. Jack will be too broke to lawyer up. He'll fade away.'" My grip tightened on the phone. Mia kept going. There were calendar invites too. Final prep. Sale. Marked private. I screenshotted what I could before they restricted my access yesterday. Sending now. My phone buzzed. Screenshots landed. Blurred calendar entries. Slack threads with vague references to exit liquidity and minority cleanup. A forwarded email chain with Lucas's personal Gmail and CC. I stared at the images until my eyes burned. "They're not just pushing me out," I said quietly. "No," Mia whispered. "They're making sure you can't come back, ever." We stayed silent for a second. Then she said, "I'm still inside. I can keep eyes open. But Jack, be careful. Lucas isn't some random advisor. He's got connections. Real ones." I thanked her, told her to stay safe. Hung up. Back at the table, I opened the screenshots in full screen, zoomed in on every detail. The fog that had been choking me since the boardroom started to thin. Not gone, not yet, but thin enough that I could see shapes through it. This wasn't a sudden power grab. This was months, maybe years, in the planning. Wick didn't just want the company. He wanted me gone so completely that no one would ever question the story he'd tell. Unstable founder, forced exit, heroic pivot under new leadership. And Lucas, whoever he really was, he was the architect. I leaned back in the chair. For the first time since walking out, my breathing felt even. The hurt was still there, deep, raw, like a bruise you can't stop pressing. But now, it had company. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind. The cold, focused kind. The kind that makes lists, that saves screenshots, that waits. I opened a new tab, searched forensic accountant startup fraud, clicked a few profiles, found a name that kept coming up in Reddit threads and small business forums. Mary Chen. Ex-Bid 4, specialized in tracing embezzlement in tech companies. Reviews said she was ruthless with numbers and doesn't scare easy. I copied her contact form link, closed the laptop, stood up, walked to the window and cracked the blinds for the first time in days. Morning light cut across the room like a blade. I wasn't okay, not even close. But I wasn't broken anymore either. I was starting to see the board clearly. And for the first time, I realized I still had pieces to play. I didn't waste time feeling sorry for myself anymore. The anger had burned through the fog, left something sharper behind. I emailed Mary Chen that same morning, short, direct subject line. Potential embezzlement and fraud. Startup founder seeking forensic review. I attached what I had. The screenshot dumps from Mia, the back-end transfer logs I'd pulled, bank statements showing the outflows and a timeline I'd scribbled in Notion. She replied within 2 hours. "Jack, I've seen this pattern before. Send everything you have securely. I'll need full access to any exported CSVs or PDFs you can share. Flat rate initial consult, $2,500. If it's as bad as it looks, we go contingency after that." I Venmo'd her the fee from my dwindling savings. Didn't even hesitate. Over the next week, we worked remote, encrypted file shares, late-night Zoom calls with screens blurred and backgrounds off. Mary was exactly what the Reddit threads promised. No nonsense, laser-focused, zero small talk. She started with the obvious, the vendor payments, Apex Advisors, Horizon Consulting. 3 others I hadn't even noticed at first. All registered in Delaware, all with the bare minimum public filing info. Mary ran them through every database she had access to. State records, IRS EAIN lookups, corporate registries, ghosts, shells. No real employees, no office addresses beyond P.O. boxes. Then she traced the wires. The money didn't just disappear. It moved in clean, predictable loops. Out of Nexlify's operating account, to intermediary business checking accounts, to offshore entities in the Caymans, and then back to U.S. accounts tied to a private investment fund. A fund registered under Lucas Vale, not as a public partner, not as an advisor fee. As the beneficial owner, Mary's voice on the call was flat, clinical. "Jack, this isn't sloppy bookkeeping. This is structured embezzlement. Over $1.4 million moved in the last 18 months alone. They routed it so it looks like legitimate consulting spend. Under the radar for most audits, but once you follow the trail, it's blatant." I stared at the screen share. Red arrows on her diagram connecting Nexlify to shells to Lucas's fund. My stomach dropped again. But this time it wasn't hurt. It was cold realization. "There's more," she said. She pulled up another tab. A draft term sheet from the potential acquirer, the big competitor who'd been circling us for months. How did she get that? Public filings and some dark web scraper alerts I subscribed to. Founders leak when they're excited. The term sheet was dated 3 weeks before my ouster. 9-figure valuation. All cash deal. And the payout structure? Wick and Lucas listed as primary shareholders post-dilution. Me? Not mentioned at all. Not even a footnote for a small severance or earnout. Mary zoomed in on the debt section. Our company took on 2 bridge loans last year. $800,000 total. You personally guaranteed them when the bank pushed back on our revenue history. I nodded, throat tight. Lucas quietly bought a majority position in that debt from the original lender 6 months ago. Through a different shell. If the sale closes, he triggers a technical default, maybe a missed covenant, maybe a fabricated breach, and calls the note. The company folds under the weight. He forecloses on assets. You personally get chased for the guarantee. She paused. Then the smear starts full force. LinkedIn posts already seeding. Unstable founder. Creative accounting. Team had to step in. Enough to make sure no one in tech hires you or invests in your next thing. I leaned back in my chair. The room felt smaller. They weren't just stealing the company. They were engineering my complete destruction. Financial ruin. Reputation blackball. No way back. Wick would walk with millions and a shiny saved the startup narrative. Lucas would pocket the debt, play the fund profits, and disappear into another deal. I was supposed to be collateral damage. Invisible. Forgotten. Mary's voice cut through again. Jack, this crosses into felony territory multiple times over. Wire fraud. Securities fraud. Breach of fiduciary duty. Possible conspiracy. If we can prove intent, and the emails Mia sent show they discussed erasing loose ends, we have them. I didn't speak for a long moment, just stared at the diagram on screen. The red lines looked like veins now. Blood money flowing away from everything I'd built. When I finally answered, my voice was quiet but steady. How do we stop it? Mary didn't hesitate. We don't stop it. We blow it up. But we do it right. Ironclad evidence. No emotion. No leaks. We freeze assets before they can close the sale. Then we go to regulators and let the system do the rest. I exhaled. For the first time since that boardroom, the weight on my chest shifted. Not gone, but shifted. From despair to purpose. I saved the shared screen. Closed Zoom. Opened a new Notion page titled simply Evidence, Phase 2, and started typing. The bitter betrayal wasn't just the money. It was the plan to erase me like I'd never existed. They thought I'd disappear quietly. They were wrong. Once the full picture hit me, there was no going back to numb silence. The apartment didn't feel like a prison anymore. It felt like a war room. I cleared the kitchen table, pushed aside takeout containers, set up 3 monitors, my laptop, an old external drive with the backups, and my phone propped up for quick reference. I started with what I already had, and built outward. First, every single log file I could still access. I scripted a quick Python scraper. Nothing fancy, just pulling timestamps, amounts, recipient accounts, and memo fields from the accounting exports. Ran it overnight while I paced the living room. By morning, I had a 400-line CSV of suspicious transactions. Dates matched bid customer inflows perfectly. Always the same pattern. Money in to money out to shells within 48 hours. Next, email archives. Mia had sent me a zipped folder of exported threads before her access got revoked. I searched for keywords: Apex, Horizon, consulting fee, advisor payout, exit prep, hits everywhere. Wick replying to Lucas, transfer approved. Keep it under $50K per invoice, avoids flags. Lucas forwarding to an offshore banker, confirm receipt, final tranche before close. I highlighted every incriminating line in yellow, saved PDFs with timestamps visible. Then Mia came through again. She texted from her personal phone. They're rushing the sale docs. I photographed the term sheet on Wick's screen when he stepped out. Sending, encrypted. The photos landed. Blurry but readable. 9-figure offer. Payout waterfall showing Wick and Lucas splitting the lion's share. My name nowhere. A clause about founder separation agreement with zero compensation. I printed them. Taped them to the wall like a conspiracy board from a crime show. Mary was working in parallel. Every couple days she'd send an updated report. Wire traces confirming $1.4 million plus moved. Shell company ownership linking back to Lucas's private fund, buried through 2 layers of LLCs. Debt purchase docs showing Lucas acquired our bridge loans at a discount. Classic vulture move. She even pulled public SEC filings on the acquirer. The deal was real. Announcement draft was already circulating in investor circles. Timeline: close in 60 days or less. We were racing a clock. I hired Victor Reyes next. He was my old grad school mentor, now a securities litigator, who specialized in startup disputes. I'd kept his number from years ago when he gave a guest lecture on founder agreements. First call was brutal honesty. Jack, if even half of this is provable, you've got them on multiple felonies. But we need chain of custody. No sloppy screenshots. Sworn affidavits, forensic level proof. He gave me a checklist. Time-stamped server logs. Check. Bank statements cross-referenced. Mary handling. Witness statements. Mia agreed to sign one. Chain of evidence log for every file I touched. I spent 3 straight days building that log. Every download, every export, every edit, documented with date, time, hash values. Paranoid? Maybe. Necessary? Absolutely. Victor reviewed the first batch remotely. Called me at midnight his time. Solid start. This isn't amateur hour. You're building a case that could trigger an SEC investigation on its own. But we need one more layer. Independent verification. Mary delivered that. She ran parallel audits against public records and subpoena-level traces using legal data services she subscribed to. Produced a 45-page forensic summary. Charts showing money flow, timelines overlapping with board changes. Emails proving intent. One page stopped me cold. A Slack thread from 6 months earlier, Wick to Lucas. Jack's still useful for now. Once the acquirer signs LOI, we dilute and drop him. He'll be too buried in debt to fight. Lucas reply. Agreed. Clean exit for us. Loose end tied. I stared at that message until the words blurred. That was the moment any remaining doubt vanished. They hadn't just betrayed me. They'd planned my ruin like a business expense. I saved it, backed it up 3 places, printed it, added it to the wall. By the end of the week, the table was buried under folders labeled Financial Trails Communications, Debt Play Sale Docs, Witness Statements. I had over 2,000 pages of proof. Not feelings, not accusations, evidence. Cold, time-stamped, verifiable. Victor's last words on our call. We're ready for the next phase. Injunction first, freeze everything before they close. Then we drop the hammer with regulators. I leaned back, neck stiff from staring at screens. The apartment still smelled like stale coffee and stress. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel powerless. I felt armed. The hurt was still there, deep in my chest like scar tissue, but now it had a purpose. I closed the laptop, stood up, looked at the wall of documents, and for the first time since that glass door clicked shut, I smiled. Small, cold, but real. They thought they'd erased me. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I thought I had the full picture after Mary's forensic breakdown. I was wrong. The money trails, the debt play, the rushed sale, they were bad enough. But the deepest cut came during one late-night dive into the email archives Mia had risked her job to export. I was searching for anything with Lucas's personal Gmail, trying to connect more dots, when I hit a forwarded chain buried in a deleted personal folder Wick never fully cleared. The subject line, Exit liquidity final. I opened it. It was a thread between Wick and Lucas, time-stamped 4 months before the boardroom ambush. Wick's message: Jack's still useful for optics, keeps investors calm. But once LOI is signed, we dilute hard, trigger the guarantees, and let him sink. He'll be living in his car by next year. Clean break for us. Lucas' reply, from his personal account: agreed. I've secured the debt position. Post-close foreclosure wipes the slate. No earnout, no severance, no references. He disappears. We walk with $40 million plus, split. Make sure the smear starts subtle now. LinkedIn plants ready. Then Wick's last line in the thread: "Lol, yeah. Guy thinks we're still bros." Pathetic. I read it twice, then 3 times. My hands went numb around the mouse. The room tilted for a second, like the floor had dropped out again. This wasn't just greed or ambition. This was personal. They didn't just want my company. They wanted me humiliated, broke, invisible. Laughing about it like I was some joke they'd finally gotten rid of. The betrayal I'd felt in the boardroom? That was surface level. This was the bone-deep truth. They'd planned my destruction the way you plan a quarterly goal. Cold, calculated, with bullet points and timelines. I sat there in the dark for a long minute, breathing slow. Then something inside me snapped. Not in rage, but in clarity. Any last thread of loyalty, any lingering maybe he'll come around, any hope of a civil conversation, gone, erased, just like they tried to erase me. I forwarded the entire thread to Victor and Mary, with one line: "This is intent, clear as day." Victor called within 20 minutes. "Jack, this email alone moves us from civil to potential criminal conspiracy. We have motive, means, and documented planning. We don't wait anymore." We activated Phase 1 that night. No drama, no confrontation, just precision. First move: emergency ex parte injunction. Victor filed before dawn. Sealed court documents requesting immediate freeze on all Nexalofi asset transfers, share issuances, and the pending acquisition. Grounds: credible evidence of ongoing fraud, embezzlement, and breach of fiduciary duty that would irreparably harm the company and its shareholders, me included. We attached the key exhibits: the exit liquidity email thread, redacted slightly for filing but damning; Mary's forensic summary with money flow charts; Mia's sworn affidavit. She'd quietly signed it the day before, terrified but resolute; time-stamped logs showing the siphoned funds. The judge granted the TRO, temporary restraining order, within 48 hours. Assets frozen. Sale blocked. No closing. No cash changing hands. Wick and Lucas woke up to the news via panicked investor emails and a locked company bank account. Second move: whistleblower packages. We sent anonymized at first dossiers to SEC, securities fraud angle; IRS, potential tax evasion on the siphoned funds; State Attorney General, corporate fraud and conspiracy. Once protections were confirmed, I attached my name and stepped forward officially. Victor handled the filings. I stayed in the background, feeding more evidence as it came. Mia kept feeding us internals. Screenshots of frantic Slack channels. Wick trying to rally the board. Lucas calling emergency meetings that went nowhere. The acquirer pulled out publicly within a week. Due diligence concerns. Investors started demanding answers. Board fractured. Panic set in. Then the voicemails started. Wick first. "Jack, hey man, what the hell is this? We need to talk. This is getting out of hand. Call me, please." Voice cracking at the end. I deleted it. Lucas next. Colder, more controlled. "Mr. Rivera, this is unnecessary escalation. We can settle this privately. Name your terms." I saved that one. Evidence of attempted coercion. More came. Begging. Threatening. Bargaining. I let them ring. Every unanswered call was a brick in the wall I was building. Victor called me one evening as the sun set over the city. "We've got them cornered, Jack. The freeze holds. Regulators are asking questions. Criminal referral is in play. They can't sell. They can't move money. And the evidence is stacking so high they can't spin it. I stood at the window, watching traffic lights blur below. The hurt was still there, scar tissue now, not an open wound. But it had transformed from pain to power. I wasn't the guy walking out of that glass door anymore. I was the one turning the key in the lock. They thought they'd buried me. They'd only given me the shovel to dig them under. Revenge wasn't a scream. It was this. Quiet, methodical, unstoppable. And it was just beginning. 3 months after the freeze hit, everything converged. Victor called it the reckoning day. I didn't call it anything. I just showed up. The meeting was set in a neutral conference room downtown. Glass walls, long mahogany table, city skyline behind blinds that were half closed, like they were trying to hide what was about to happen. I walked in with Victor on my left, Mary on my right. 3 thick black binders between us, labeled simply, Exhibit Set A, B, C. Wick was already there. He looked smaller than I remembered. Shirt collar too big, tie crooked, dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in weeks. He tried for the old smirk when he saw me. It died halfway. Lucas sat next to him, still in the expensive suit, still with the flashy watch, but his arms were crossed tight across his chest, like he was holding himself together. No eye contact. Their lawyer, a slick downtown type in a pinstripe suit, was flipping through papers fast, whispering urgently. Then the door opened again. 2 SEC investigators walked in. Plain clothes, badges clipped to belts, no-nonsense faces. One carried a tablet, the other just carried presence. The room temperature dropped 5 degrees. Victor spoke first, calm, professional, zero drama. Good afternoon. We're here pursuant to the temporary restraining order and the pending civil and criminal matters. Mr. Rivera is prepared to present the full evidentiary record. I didn't stand. Didn't need to. I opened Binder A, started with the basics. Exhibit 1, forged board resolutions and share issuance documents. Forensic analysis confirms signature forgery via metadata mismatch and pressure inconsistencies. I slid copies across the table. Wick's lawyer reached for them. His hand hesitated. Exhibit 2, wire transfer logs showing $1. 47 million siphoned to shell entities, cross-referenced with bank statements and Mary Chen's forensic audit. Charts hit the table next. Red arrows, timelines, dollar amounts in bold. Lucas shifted in his seat. Exhibit 3, debt acquisition records. Lucas Vale, through intermediary LLCs, purchased 78% of Nexlify's bridge debt at discount. Intent, trigger default post-sale for personal foreclosure. Wick's face went from pale to gray. I kept going. Methodical. Unstoppable. Exhibit 4. Communications demonstrating intent, including the exit liquidity final email thread. I placed the printout face up. Wick's words stared back at everyone. He'll be living in his car by next year. Clean break for us. Lucas's reply, loose end tied. The room went dead silent except for the faint hum of the AC. Wick's lawyer cleared his throat. This is, taken out of context, Victor cut him off without raising his voice. Context is provided by the full chain, including Slack messages planning the smear campaign, affidavit from witness Mia Patel corroborating overhears, time-stamped server logs proving deletion attempts. One of the SEC guys leaned forward. Mr. Hayes, Mr. Vale, we've received the whistleblower package and opened a formal inquiry. Wire fraud, securities violations, potential conspiracy to commit fraud. You're looking at civil penalties, disgorgement, and referral to DOJ if criminal thresholds are met. Wick's hand started shaking visibly. He tried to speak. Voice cracked. Jack, come on. We can fix this. Private settlement. I looked at him for the first time since walking in, held eye contact. No. One word. It landed like a door slamming. Lucas tried next. Smoother, more controlled. This is aggressive posturing. We can negotiate. Mary spoke up for the first time. Voice flat, cutting. Your funds already frozen. The acquirer withdrew. Investors are demanding clawbacks. Negotiation window closed when you chose fraud over fiduciary duty. The SEC investigator nodded once. We'll be taking statements separately. Assets remain frozen pending full investigation. Any attempt to transfer or dissipate will be considered obstruction. Wick's lawyer whispered something frantic. Wick just stared at the table. Lucas's jaw clenched so hard I saw the muscle twitch. I closed the binders slowly, one by one. The sound of them snapping shut echoed louder than any yelling ever could. We walked out first. Victor, Mary, me. Down the hallway, past the elevators into the lobby. Sunlight hit my face when we stepped outside. Sharp, clean. Victor clapped me on the shoulder once. It's not over. But the tide turned today. Within the next 6 weeks, sale permanently blocked. Assets seized for potential restitution. Civil suits filed by me and several investors. Criminal referrals issued. Wire fraud, securities fraud, conspiracy. Complicit parties, the accountants who signed off, the consultant planting rumors, started flipping. Cooperating for reduced exposure. Nexlify didn't collapse. The fraud was surgically removed. Investors, furious at Wick and Lucas, provided bridge funding on new terms. My terms. I reclaimed majority control at a valuation that made the original theft look like pocket change. Mia stepped up as COO. The team rallied. We shipped updates. Customers stayed. Revenue climbed past $18 million ARR within the year. Wick and Lucas? They faced the fallout head-on. Wick declared personal bankruptcy 3 months later. Reputation torched. No one in tech would touch him. Last I heard, he was chasing remote consulting gigs that evaporated the second NDAs cleared and people searched his name. Lucas settled massive civil judgments quietly. His fund imploded under regulatory scrutiny. He vanished from the scene. Rumors said he moved overseas, tail between legs, reputation in shreds. No dramatic courtroom explosions. No viral takedowns. Just the slow, inevitable crush of evidence, law, and consequences. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Walking out of that conference room, binders under my arm, I felt something lift off my shoulders that had been crushing me for months. Not just anger, not just hurt. Powerlessness. It was gone. Replaced by something quieter, stronger. I'd taken back what was mine, and buried the men who tried to bury me. Legally. Completely. Irreversibly. Months passed. The dust settled slowly, the way it does after a storm you thought would never end. I turned 37, in a quiet way. No big party. Just coffee with Mia and a few of the core team who'd stuck around through the chaos. We raised a mug in the break room and laughed about the old ping-pong table that somehow survived everything. Nexlify didn't just survive. It came back stronger. The investors who'd been burned by Wick and Lucas wanted nothing to do with drama anymore. They wanted results. They gave us bridge funding on clean terms. No strings tied to old betrayals. I held majority control again. But this time, it felt different. Earned. Clean. We shipped new features. Things I'd sketched on napkins years ago but never had time for because I was always putting out fires Wick started. Customers noticed. Churn dropped. Revenue crossed $18 million ARA, then kept climbing. The office changed too. No more forced culture perks that felt performative. We kept the exposed brick, the standing desks, the LaCroix, but we added real things. Flexible hours, mental health days, profit sharing that actually meant something. Mia became COO officially. She ran operations like she always had. Smart, steady, no ego. The team trusted her because she'd never wavered when things got dark. I started coding again. Not just reviewing pull requests, actually building. Late nights weren't stressful anymore. They felt like coming home. My fingers remembered the rhythm. Bugs didn't feel like personal failures. They were just problems to solve. I slept better. No more waking up at 3 a.m. with my heart racing, replaying that boardroom smirk. The scar was still there. Betrayal like that doesn't vanish, but it stopped hurting every day. It became a reminder instead. Proof I could walk through fire and come out the other side. Wick and Lucas, they faded into the background noise of consequences. Wick filed for personal bankruptcy. His LinkedIn went quiet after a few desperate open-to-work posts got ratioed by people who knew the story. Word travels fast in tech. He chased freelance consulting gigs, but they dried up the moment someone Googled his name and saw the fraud headlines. Last I heard, through a mutual connection, he was back living with family, trying to rebuild from scratch. I didn't feel joy about it. Not really. Just detachment. Lucas disappeared, quieter. Settled the civil suits out of court for amounts that hurt but didn't bankrupt him completely. His fund collapsed under regulatory pressure. He left the country. Some said Europe, others said Asia. No flashy comeback, no second act. Just gone. Sometimes I wonder if either of them learned anything. If regret keeps them up at night the way their betrayal kept me up for months. If they ever replay those emails, those laughs at my expense, and feel even a fraction of the weight I carried. I don't know. And honestly, I don't need to know. I don't wait for apologies that will probably never come. I don't check their profiles or follow their downfall like some revenge porn. I'm too busy living, waking up to sunlight instead of dread, building something real with people who show up honestly, laughing, actually laughing, without second-guessing every word. The betrayal cut deep, like glass through the chest. But the justice? It wasn't fireworks or viral moments. It was quiet, clean, final. And most of all, it gave me back my life, not the one they tried to steal. A better one. One I built myself, on my terms, with people who have my back. And every morning when I walk into that office, past the glass door that once clicked shut behind me like a coffin, I don't feel like a victim anymore. I feel like the guy who won. Not by screaming, not by destroying, by refusing to disappear. And that feels like freedom. If you've ever come back stronger after someone tried to break you, drop your story below. I read every one. Hit like if this hit home. Subscribe for more stories where the underdog doesn't just survive, they thrive. Thanks for watching. See you next time.